Getting started with Flux Panda is super simple. The first thing you want to do is head over to our website and sign up for your account. You create a username and password, and then you're in the dashboard. And once you're in the dashboard, the first thing that you want to do is probably configure your channel, and that's what you do under channel settings. So I'm going to take you through this in some more details so you know exactly what's going on here, because that's probably the most complicated page of everything, but it's actually not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward. So here we have your channel details. You can specify obviously the currency. That's important, right? So we support one currency per channel. So you want to select the currency that you want to sell in. That should match probably your e-commerce store as well. You have a time zone. The time zone specifies the time of your channel. So if you like schedule an event, it will be scheduled in that time zone. And if someone watches your landing page, which I'm going to show you later, from another time zone, they will see it in their time, right? So they know exactly when you start. So that's why it's important to put the right time there in that you operate. You can put the URL to your website, your email, and your phone number. And then the other thing that we have is the terms and conditions. And that's quite important, but maybe you want to put your e-commerce terms and conditions in here, because if someone joins your live, then they will opt in to the live, right? It's kind of like an opt-in process where they say that they're okay with, like joining the live, and that, whatever terms and conditions apply. And that's important that you, like have the right terms here, because you're going to maybe collect some data from them, or you have special, like shipping or return policies or whatever. So put this in here, and, they will have to accept those terms before they join the live by simply clicking a checkbox. And then you can put your business address here, and that's pretty much it for the channel details. So pretty straightforward here. Mainly you need to change the currency, the time zone, and put your terms and conditions. That's the most important parts. Then here we have checkout settings. Now what you can do here is you have two options. Either you have our default option, which is using our built-in checkout, and you can take payments using PayPal or Stripe, and the orders will end up in our system. Or you can use the external checkout, which means that you're going to use your e-commerce store to receive the orders. And this requires a little bit more configuration. You need to put some JavaScript onto the page, and I'm going to show you later on how to do this. But just keep in mind that this will need to be configured based on your e-commerce store. You will have to change this to this option, and put the URL to your e-commerce store here, and have all those settings here. But as I said, I'm going to go into more details in this later on. And the terms and conditions that you see over here, you can also fill them, but they're only applicable if you have the external checkout option on, and it's essentially some special terms that you can put just when people check out, right? So before they go to the Stripe or PayPal payment, you can put some terms here, and maybe some special shipping deals or whatever you have. And don't worry about this if you're using the external checkout. You don't need them because you already have those over here that people accepted. The shipping address, it has, again, only an effect if you use our built-in checkout flow. So here you can decide which countries you ship to, and then people can only choose addresses or like input addresses within those countries. And you can also like specify some shipping rates for each country. However, there is another thing that you may even want to use this if you use your own e-commerce setup, is because we prioritize in certain cases, for example, when you use phone number login or other things, which countries are shown on top of the list. So in this case, I would have those countries on the top of my list, because I selected them in shipping countries, so it means I'm expecting customers from there, right? So you may want to populate this to just make the user experience better. The other thing that you have here is the front-end language. So our application is available in multiple languages, and you can decide which one you want to be the default language, which means if anyone goes to your player, they will see that language by default, and then they can switch it to another language if they choose to do so. So that helps you to kind of like make sure that you are having the right language for the people that you expect based on your country. And what else do we have here? Reporting. You can use this to send an email report to that email over here, and it will tell you statistics about your channel, how many viewers you had per session, how many people signed up, new signups, and so forth. So that's useful to send an ad hoc report. We also send this report once a week automatically, but if you want one now, then you can press that button. And then here we have UTM campaign tracking. This you can use specifically for the standalone player, so not maybe that important for the one that's in your e-commerce store, because I'm sure you already have Google Analytics or stuff like that set up. But if you want to track the traffic sources that bring people to the standalone player, and the standalone player, just to remind you, is that one over here, the one that you access using a direct URL, then you can use the UTM parameters, and what happens then is that you can export a report and you can see exactly which users have signed up from a specific source, right? So let's say from your email campaign, how many people came from there, the link that you posted onto your Instagram account, how many people came from there, and so forth. So that's useful to do some more analytics and data tracking. And then here we have the authentication method, which specifically is the anonymous authentication. Now, what this means is that we have several ways for users to authenticate themselves when they want to chat, because we need to know who they are, because we want to, know them better and potentially block them, right? Stuff like that. Or if they participate in a lucky draw, or like do anything else on the system that kind of like requires us to know who they are, because we need to reach out to them. We kind of like need them to authenticate, log in, tell us who they are. And there are several methods that we support. The native ones are phone number authentication, where we send a one-time password to the user. That's the default one. We have email link authentication, where we send a link to the email that they entered, which they have to click in order to authenticate. We have Facebook authentication, where they can log in with their Facebook account. And we have anonymous authentication. Now, anonymous authentication assumes that the user will provide the correct data. Because if someone logs in with their phone number and a one-time password, you can be pretty sure it's their phone number. If someone uses the magic link on the email, you can be pretty sure it's their email. And the same with the Facebook account, you know it's that Facebook account. Now, with anonymous authentication, you can circumvent the extra step of verifying the one-time password that you get via the SMS or the email link that you get. And you can make the journey a little bit smoother, but at the same time, you obviously could have someone putting a false email address. Now, if you're happy with that, you can turn on anonymous authentication, and you can select which data you want to collect if someone wants to use a specific functionality. So here, in terms of the chat, we must have the name, right? Because they should have a name that they need to give themselves. But if I turn on the email, for example, then it would also ask the user to provide the email when they want to chat. The same thing for the lucky draw. We can choose, do I want the email or the phone number? And you can see at least one of them we need, because otherwise we won't be able to contact them, right? So that's another way for you to decide how you want people to identify themselves based on the feature that they use. And just to also mention or explain what is this notify me over here. So we have a landing page, it's here, that is available for each channel, right? So that shows all the different shows that you have coming up. And if you are, I need to log out here. Let me do that. Yeah, so assume someone is not logged in. You can see here there's a notify me button, and essentially when you press this, I will first opt into your channel, right? So that's allow sellers to contact me and agree to the terms and conditions, and this is your link that I showed you in the settings that you can update. And now you can see here it's asking me to authenticate using my phone number. Let's do that. And now I'm in, right? Because as you can see in the channel settings, we asked for the phone number. If I would have turned the email, it would have asked for the email. And we can now try another thing, which is, let's say, on the chat. I'm going to turn on the email address. So now that I have enabled to collect the email address also for the chat, And as soon as I click on the chat icon, you can see I have to put my name and my email in order to authenticate. So that's another way for you to capture and decide which data you want to capture during a live show. So that's the authentication section over here. And that's pretty much it. So once you've set up those things, you are almost ready to go live. And we're going to look in the next section on how you're going to add your first product and actually go live.